So, Kalkadosh, we're continuing on Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. This is the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Amutzi Teven, if you're going to take out Teven, which is basically different grains, right, which are cut, Kimlo pi para, like the amount that you would put inside the mouth of a para, right, or Etza. You're going to take out Etza. What is Etza over here? The Gemara is going to explain what is Etza. Okay, Kimlo pi gamal, just like the mouth of a camel. Right, amid, you're going to take out the kosher shibulim. Different shibulim are like a different, it's not grains, it's more like kernels, no? Amid is kashim shlemim.
It's true. Amir is the straw.
Straw, okay. Kimlo pi tle, like the mouth of a tle, of a kid. Va'asabim, kimlo pi gdi, right? Or sorry, the tle is a sheep, no? And the asabim is kimlo pi gdi, which is the grass, which is the size of a gdi of a kid, right? Which is less than a tle.
Asabim is the grass.
Right, the grass. Ale shum vale betzalim, or we're talking about the leaves of garlic or of onions. Lachim, if they're going to be moist, can go get it, like the dried fig. Okay, yivashim kimlo pi gdi, but if they're going to be dry, it has to be like the mouth of a gdi of a kid. So in all these cases, right, it says they do not mitztaref. They do not combine to be chayav. So in order for us to be chayav, you need each one of these measurements. So if it's talking about teven, it has to be enough to fill up a cow's mouth. If it's with itzah, which we're going to explain in the Gemara, enough for a camel's mouth. Amir, which is a straw, like the sheep. That's something the grass, like the gdi, the kid. So it depends. If it's moist, like a grogeret, a dried fig. If it's dry, like a gdi, and they do not combine with each other. So if I took a little bit of grass and a little bit, they don't combine. It has to be each one. But since each one has a different shiur, they do not combine together. Okay? Says the Gemara, my itzah, what is itzah in the Mishnah that we said that you need kimlo pi gamal, like the mouthful of a camel? Rav Yehuda says, teven shel kitnit. It's like grains of different types of beans. Okay? Which is interesting, a grain of beans. What does this mean? Okay, it's fitting to eat for the camels. Okay. Hiyata Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amari said, Hamotzi teven kimlo pi para, if you're going to take out the grains, right, like the mouthful of a para, le gamal, in order to give it to a gamal, which obviously the gamal has a bigger mouth than a para, Rav Yochanan says you're going to be chayav, and Mishmon Lakish says you're going to be patur. Okay? So it's interesting. That means basically you took out a shiur, which is only for the para, but you put it for the gamal. So therefore, since he needs much more to eat, are you going to be chayav or not? So Rabbi Yochanan says you are going to be chayav. Rabbi Shimon, why? Because at the end of the day, you did take out the shiur to be chayav. But according to Rabbi Shimon Lakish, you were giving the wrong animal to eat. And for this gamal, for this camel, it's not enough to eat. So you're going to be patur. Be'orta amar Rabbi Yochanan achi, in the morning, in the nighttime, he went and he said like this. This is what he just said. That Safra hadabe, but in the morning, he retracted. And he said like Rish Lakish, you're going to be patur. So Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, Shapid avad adar. It's better that he retracted. Ta'alo chazi legamal. Because the fact that you were taking it out for a gamal, it's not fitting for a gamal. What do I care? It's fitting for a cow. If you're not giving it to the cow, you're giving it to the gamal. So therefore, right, it's not fitting for the gamal. So Amalei Abaye argues and he says, Adrabah, the opposite. It was better, like he said at the beginning, because since we were talking about teven is normally the food of cows, and he took it out, fitting for a cow. What do I care now that he's giving it to a gamal? At the end of the day, it was fitting for a cow, and he took out for a cow. That's a food which is designated for a cow. But rather, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Amari said like this, if right now you took out teven, right, like a mouthful of a para to a gamal, nobody argues that you're going to be chayav. Which means, according to everybody, you're going to be chayav. Why? But since it's fitting for a para, you are chayav. So according to this, is like what Abaye said, which means for sure you should be chayav. You took out a food which is designated for a cow, and you took out the right amount. So you're going to be chayav. When is the machloket? When you're going to take out, it's out over here, when is the machloket between Yochanan and Shakish? When you're going to take out etzah, right, which was for a cow, right, lepara. Why? Because etzah is not fitting for a cow, only al lidei dachak. It's fitting for a gamal. So the fact that you took out a smaller shiur for the gamal, and you took it for the para eats less, so it's got a smaller shiur, but it's really not fitting for the para, really, that's going to be a machloket. That's the machloket between them. Okay? But it was the opposite there. Rabbi Yochanan there says you're going to be patur. He says, why? Because the shiur of etzah to be chayav has to be the shiur of a gamal, and here you only took out a shiur of a para. And the Shaki says you're going to be chayav, because at the end of the day, you took out enough food for the para. It's not really fitting for the para. It doesn't matter, but you did take out the food for the para. Rabbi Yochanan amar patur. Rabbi Yochanan says you're going to be patur achila dachak lo shma achila. This eating in pressing needs, meaning giving it to eat in such a way, is not really called eating. So therefore, you're going to be patur. The Shaki holds chayav achila lidei dachak shma achila, but he says you're going to be chayav because it is considered achila. It is considered like you're eating. Okay. Next, 2 dots, the amir, which is a straw. Kimlo pitle, like the mouth of a sheep. We learned that it has to be chayav. In order for you to be chayav, it has to be like a grugere, like a dried fig. So answers the Gemara, idividi chad shiuru. You're right, it's the same shiur. Meaning a dried fig or like the mouthful of a tle of a sheep is going to be the same thing. Okay, fine. Anyway, it was teaching us that straw is fitting for the sheep. Okay, fine. Next, because the question was, that's what it says in the footnote, that technically it should have written the grugeret, which is much more feasible or much more common, shiur. But he said, no, I just wanted to teach us that that was what's fitting for the sheep. Fine. We're talking about the leaves of garlic or of onions. Lachim, if they're moist, it's going to be like a grugeret. If it's going to be dry, kimlo pi agdi, right? Like a full mouth of a gdi. But they're not going to be mitzaref because they're not equal. They don't have the same shiur. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rav Chanina says, Rabbi Yosef Rav Chanina, en mitzarfin lechamur shebayin. It's not going to be mitzaref for the stringent one, okay? Which means it doesn't go up to the stringent one to finish the shiur, okay? But it would have a mitzarfin, but it does mitzaref lekal shebayin in order to finish off the kal. So, for example, the tevin for the pi para is going to be mitzaref with etzah for the pi gamal, okay? Because that's going to be mekel, not to be chamur. He says because the chamur is more important, so therefore it could be mashlim the kal. That's what he's trying to say. But the kal is not important, so it cannot be mashlim the chamur. Okay, so this is basically like a general rule in the mitztarfim, in the combinations, that it does not combine to go stringent, but it does combine lower down. Okay? So it says the Gemara, v'chol de lo shavu b'shiurim, shiurayhu mi mitztarfim. It says what? Can it be mitztaref if it's not shaveh b'shiurim, if it doesn't have the same measurements? But now we learned in the Mishnah, habeged, when we're talking about a utensil, clothing. Sorry. We're talking about a clothing which is made out of tzemer or pishtim, whether wool or linen. Shlosha has to be 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. The sack or a sackcloth, which is made out of sad izim, by the hairs of the izim, right, of the goats, and therefore it's very thicker than a beged. Al arba arba has to be 4 by 4 tvachim. The or and skins, chamisha al chamisha has to be 5 and 5 tvachim. Mapats, if it's going to be made out of like a carpet, right, which is made out of reeds, shisha al shisha, 6 on 6. The Tanila, we learned on it, habeged v'sak, right, v'sak v'or ha'or v'mapa, whether it's the beged in the sack, or the sack in the or the or in the mapats. Mitzarfim zeh. They are mitzaref. Now, 1 second. Why are you saying that they are going to be mitzaref? At the end of the day, it's not the same measurements. So if it's not the same measurements, you just told me now, general rule, they don't mitzaref. The Amar b'Shimon says b'Shimon, right? Matam. What's the reasoning why they are mitzaref? Because they could still be mitameh b'mushav, right, together. Which means that in a merdat of a chamor, in the saddle of a chamor, many times people will put different types of places, different types, whether it's, in one place more of a clothing, another place leather, another place this, in order to have for the saddle. So for the arm mitzaref, and says the Gemara, so the Gemara is going to continue the question, The reason why they're mitzaref is because it's going to be mitzaref, because it's going to be mitameh b'moshav and sitting down. But if not, it's not going to be mitzaref, right? So therefore, how do you say that the ma'achal be'ema are going to combine together for tzah Shabbat, even if it's a chamur to a kal, but you don't use them together? So if you don't use them together, it's not going to be mitzaref together for tumat moshav. So why are they going to be mitzaref? So Amar Rava comes and he answers, right? Ayin Vav Amud Bet. He says, no. Also by the animals, it's fitting for ledugma. What is a dugma? Dugma is many times that you bring these things to give like samples. So for samples, right? That's why, right? It's going to be, he says, because since it's fitting for samples, that's why it's going to be chayav, because they do put them together for samples, like they put them together to show on the window in order to give the samples. Okay, it says a Mishnah, if somebody's going to take out food the size of a grogeret, of a dried fig, chayav. Now, food do combine together to be mitzaref, because it's the same measurements, which means since all types of foods is grogeret, so all types you could combine with. It's going to be, this type of food, another type of food, they combine. Chutz miklipatan, except for the klipa, the peels. Or the pits, right? Or the okitz is the top part.
The stems.
The suban, or the subanu mursanan is basically the bran, no?
The coarse bran.
Coarse bran. Okay, coarse bran. Okay, so that's subanu mursanan. Okay.
Mursanan is the fine bran.
So the different types of bran then. Okay. Subanu mursanan.
Whatever left over from the kernel.
From where?
Kernel.
From the kernels, yeah. So it says here, Rabbi Yehuda says, except, he says, you're right. All the klipot, they do not combine, just like Tanakama, except for the klipa of the adashim, of the lentils, because that they're cooked together and therefore they are mitzaref. So all types of klipot, they do not combine, but they do combine the klipot of the lentils. Okay, says the Gemara, the subanu mursanan lo mitzarfin. Are you going to tell me that subanu mursanan, they're not mitzaref together? But Tnan, we learned in our Mishnah, chameshet revaim kemach ve'od, when you have 5 revaim of kemach and more, so you have a little bit more than 5 revaim, 5 quarters of flour, chayvim b'chala, they're going to be chayav chala. Hen v'suban mursanan, we do combine the fine bran and the coarse bran. So we do combine everything together. So therefore, why do you tell me that it's not going to combine for hotza'ah? Here they do combine for chala, to take off afrashat chala. So answers the Gemara. Abai says no. Shekenani ochel pito beisab lusa. No, because an ani does eat his bread like this, which means since an ani does eat his bread in such a way with the coarse bran and the fine bran, everything together in one thing, that's why it's going to be obligated in chiyuv chala. However, though, to do with Shabbat hotzah, it's not everyone does that. So since the majority of people only aniyim do that, so therefore it doesn't combine together. Rabbi Yehuda says chutz mikiplei adashim, except for the klipot, right, the peels of lentils which are cooked with it. Adashim in, pulin lo. Says the Gemara, only adashim, yes. Only lentils, but not pulin, but not different types of beans. But Tanya, we learned from Rabbi Yehuda says, except for also klipe kulim adashim. He put them together. That also pulin are the same like adashim, which they do not combine. That they do combine together. That means adashim and pulin, they combine together with the food, unlike all other types of peels. So answers the Gemara, that's not a question. The Gemara is talking about whether they're new, which means kitniot, which they're fresh, and therefore the klipot adashim or klipot pulim, they do combine. Habatike, one of them is talking about where they're already old, and therefore they're not going to combine together. So atike my tamalo, why is it if it's already old that does not combine together? Amar Rabbi Yavu says, Rabbi Yavu neshenidin kizvuvim b'kera, but they look like flies in a kera, which means they look different. So therefore, if you're going to cook it with a klipa, it looks like it's got tons of flies. So therefore, you never cook them together with a peel, because if not, you're going to start thinking you have bugs in there, right? So therefore, you don't do such a thing. Hadran alach klal gadol. We finished the perek klal gadol.
Thank you very much.
So